Hello and welcome to episode 84 of the HamCorp training manual. In this episode, we begin an overhaul of the solar tower setup, adding 2 more towers, an extreme heat exchanger, and XL turbines. Sadly, I cannot build the finalized setup until I make some grade 3 purified water, so the setup shown in this training manual is somewhat incomplete, and you'll have to wait for a future episode for the full setup. Hello. I've done some things between episodes. I upgraded my special ore processing, and I've actually changed the layout quite significantly. So this is tungsten steel now. Actually, no, this is tungsten. So I make my tungsten dust here. I upgraded to a multi-block autoclave. Here is my ruby juicer, sapphire juicer, and green sapphire juicer. These are now the blast furnaces. They're now vulcanized. So I only smelt tungsten ingots when I have less than 4,000 tungsten ingots, because most of the time I want it to be turned into tungsten steel. Downstairs, I have the bauxite line, now with a multi-block fluid heater. I have my ilmenite processing, another double vulcanist setup for titanium from rutile, and over here is my galena and sphalerite. These 3 machines are the only ones that haven't been moved or upgraded, because they were already at LUV. And you may have noticed that there's this weird cover here on the pyrotheum heating vent. And in fact, at my blast furnaces, they're on all of the heating vents and all of the cooling vents. These covers are the Ender Fluid Link cover. This is unlocked at LUV. There's a quest about it here. This is basically a way to teleport fluids around without using ender tanks. And it's a cover, so it doesn't take up a block space. So that's really nice. This saves me quite a few channels because I was previously exporting with a fluid export bus. And I just have it stored in these 2 super tanks now. The Ender Fluid Link cover has an input-output rate of 8,000 liters per tick. And these machines use 10 liters per second. It is going to be able to power 16,000 machines. That's a lot. I haven't upgraded my monazite line yet because this is just a very intimidating beast. And yeah, it's just a lot. I'm so scared of this. Besides that, I've made a few more extreme combustion engines. Quite a few more. And I also noticed in my ore processing that there was a pretty big bottleneck on one of the maceration steps. So I upgraded it to the tier 2 industrial maceration stack. And finally, for these miners over here, I've set up a linked input bus. This is where the miners get their mining pipes from. Because before, when I was just feeding it manually, once the meteor was mined up and the pipes retracted, it doesn't go back into this input bus, it just goes into the output. So eventually my ender chest would just be filled with pipes. Now this linked input bus is basically a shared inventory on this dimension. So all of these linked input buses are sharing these 1,000 mining pipes. And there's a quest about this here in Ivy, so I actually could have done this quite a while ago. Now today, we're going to start work on the Waterline. I don't know exactly where I'm going to put it, but it's going to be on this side of the base because the results of the poll were in. I showed them in the previous episode, and we are going to be using more solar towers and renewable energy to power at least the first 2 stages of the Waterline, first 2 or 3 stages. So I have crafted up a lot of stuff. 2 more solar towers, and actually I have already pre-crafted a lot of the blocks needed for the Waterline. I just haven't made the controllers. So I will do that now for the quests. The water purification plant is just the first step. It's not even the first step, actually. This is more like the brain of the water purification system. The first step is actually the clarifier. I'm still crafting this. This is going to take some time because I need to make pre-activated carbon dust. And each one of these takes me 5 seconds because right now I'm just running off of a single LUV LCR. In the meantime, I can set up my power. So I have my first solar tower from before, and I found a much better system of running the solar tower using a daylight sensor. So I'll explain this once I have the other solar tower set up. So I've made 2 more, and I've already started digging out the space here. I'll have to do a bit more fiddling because I don't know exactly how many thermal boilers I need, and I don't know exactly how many steam turbines I need, so I'll look into that as well. Originally, I wanted to also make the step 2, the ozonation purification unit as well, but actually to get the data stick for this, I need to scan a cell of grade 1 water. So this is going to have to wait until after I run the grade 1 cycle a few times. I've set up my solar towers, and I have also set up an extreme heat exchanger. Because once you have 2 or more solar towers, this becomes useful and actually better than the boilers. I'll come back to exactly how I've set this up. To be honest, it's not fully set up because I need everything else. And you can see here that I have removed the turbines because now that I have 3 solar towers and an extreme heat exchanger, I'm going to be making supercritical steam, which means I need a supercritical steam turbine. That makes superheated steam, which goes into the high pressure steam turbine, which makes regular steam, which goes into the steam turbine. So actually, I thought I was going to get 3 amps of LUV out of this, but I checked the turbine numbers and I'm going to get 18 amps out of this. 18 amps of LUV. So what, 4.5 amps of CPM? That's really good, actually. I need quite a few steam turbines though. I actually need 25 if I went for the regular steam turbines, so I'm going to go for the XL ones. These are big boys. You've seen these before with the gas turbines. I've been using this for nitrobenzene, but we're going to need some of these for supercritical steam. So I'm going to have to make 2 of them because they run as fast as 16 each, and I need 25 in total, so 2 XL will work. And that means I need 2 XL high pressure turbines, and I need 2 XL regular steam turbines. This is a lot of material, and I don't think it's really worth it, but I'm committed to the solar tower idea, so I'm gonna do it. Well, bunch of crafting. I'll be back in several days, weeks, years. I don't know. It has now been about 12 hours, and I'm nearly done. I have just about everything. I just need to make the molten adamantium alloy for making reinforced supercritical turbine casings, and I need to make the controllers themselves. The adamantium alloy dust, though, it needs adamantium, naquata, and lanthanum. Lanthanum is a bit of a problem. I have a bit of this already. This is from the monazite line, but, well, I guess technically it's from the bastnasite line. But this is just a mess, and it's also really slow. I think everything is still at EV, but for right now, there is a more immediate solution to my lanthanum problem, and that is rare earth 3 dust. So you can make this by putting rare earth in a chemical bath with hydrofluoric acid or with industrial strength hydrofluoric acid. This makes crushed rare earth 3 dust, which you can process into rare earth 3 dust. And this you can put in an IV dehydrator, and it gets you a bunch of these super rare dusts. Most of these don't have lanthanum, but 2 of them do. So agardite has lanthanum, and gadolinite also has lanthanum. And it's not a lot. But that actually works out to about 1 lanthanum dust for 10.7 rare earth 3 dust. I need to make an IV dehydrator. And I don't really see the point in making a single block IV dehydrator at this point. I may as well make the multi-block because then I can do parallels and it's a bit cheaper and it's a bit faster. But once I have this going, I can get my lanthanum, I can get my adamantium alloy, and I can make my reinforced supercritical turbine casings. Guys, I fucked up on 2 counts. First of all, earlier I said you can get lanthanum from rare earth 3 in a 1 to 10 ratio, or I guess 10 to 1 ratio. It's actually more like 100 to 1, which means I need to kind of help this bastnasite line go along, so I'm just doing that manually instead of upgrading everything right now. And that's fine, this can be solved. But the extra large turbo supercritical steam turbine needs dalasonite screws, plates, and gears. And smelting dalasonite needs UV. And this has fucked me. Because if you look at the usage here, if you consider that in a Vulcanus you only use 90% of the EU, this actually works out to 13.5 amps of LUV. So you can put multiple energy hatches on the Vulcanus, and each one accepts 2 amps. So if I had 7 energy hatches, I would be able to do that smelt, even though I don't have ZPM hatches or UV hatches. But, and here's the problem. So the Vulcanus needs a minimum of 6 Vulcanus casings. It also needs a maintenance hatch. It needs a pyrotheum heating vent. And it needs an input bus, an output bus. And unfortunately, for dalasonite, it also needs an input hatch, because every single recipe uses a gas or some fluid. I have 9 spots on the bottom, 9 spots on the top. 1 spot is taken up by the controller block. 1 spot is taken by the maintenance hatch. 1 spot by the pyrotheum heating vent. 1 spot by the input hatch. 1 spot by the input bus. 1 spot by the output bus. Another 6 will be taken up by the minimum required casings, which means I have 6 more slots to play with. And even if I make them all LUV energy hatches, it's still not enough to do this craft. All that to say, I cannot make the XL turbo supercritical steam turbines yet. But luckily we're not too far from it, because once I can make 2 ZPM energy hatches, I'm good. I can do that craft and I can make this thing. And that's probably going to be something pretty high on my priority list because I've basically made everything else, including these reinforced supercritical turbine casings. Well, I haven't made them, but I have the plates, the screws, the casings, and I can make the adamantium alloy. What a letdown. While those things were crafting, I also expanded the building over here vertically. So now the bottom is going to be supercritical steam, and then superheated steam, and then regular steam. And I've made enough space for 2 extra large turbines on each level. Oh man, everything is going wrong this episode. I planned to put these on their side, but apparently you cannot put these on their side. That's annoying. Alright, I'm gonna have to restructure this a little bit, but I'm basically gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna have the bottom layer be supercritical, superheated, and regular. Well, that looks nice. I have filled every rotor assembly with a large turbine made of adamantium. This gives me a 205% EU boost. That's pretty nice. I've also tried to hook everything up to applied energistics, and I'll go over that soon. But first, let me just say that this next bit is going to be a little incomplete and not really the best explanation of things. And I have no one to blame but myself for not looking closely at these supercritical steam turbines. So until I have the ability to make these, this is going to be kind of a temporary, a little bit of a shittier setup than my final goal for these solar towers. Once I do have these turbines, I'll come back and explain everything properly. But for now, let me explain how the extreme heat exchanger works. So this is the recipe that goes into the extreme heat exchanger. 20,000 distilled water and 3,200 hot solar salt. This goes in, and it makes either 3.2 million superheated steam or 3.2 supercritical steam, depending on how fast we put in the solar salt. And of course, you also get a refund of the solar salt, but it's cold, which is what we want. At the bottom here, you can see that there are 3 values. A maximum hot fluid input, a maximum distilled water input, and a threshold. So the maximum is pretty self-explanatory. These numbers will scale based on the amounts you put in. So if I put in 1600 solar salt, I would only need to put in 10,000 distilled water, but I would also only get 1.6 million steam and 1600 solar salt back. Now this threshold value is interesting. So for the extreme heat exchanger, if we supply more than 1600 liters per second of hot solar salt, this is going to make supercritical steam. If we supply less, it's going to make superheated steam. I currently don't have a way to process supercritical steam, and I don't really want to make the single block turbines. So I'm just going to purposefully undersupply the extreme heat exchanger so that I get superheated steam. To do that, I've put in an intermediate super tank with a fluid regulator, and I'm going to set the value to, for now, 800 per second. So 800 liters per second, this is what we want for now. I'm not going to hook up the other 2 solar towers for now. I'm just going to use a Tesla cover to supplement any power demand. And then eventually, once I am able to fully process everything, then I will clean everything up, remove the Tesla cover, and I'll go over the final setup one more time in a more organized way. One solar tower makes 800 liters of hot solar salt per second. Well, it does 8,000 every 10 seconds, but yeah, 800 a second. And like I said, these values scale with the amount you put in. So I need to supply 5,000 distilled water per second, and I will get 800,000 superheated steam. Another important thing about the extreme heat exchanger is that it explodes if it runs out of water. So to deal with that, I have a distillation tower here. It's a dango up because I need the speed. That is stored in this intermediate buffer tank. This buffer tank has a fluid detector cover set to, I think, 2 million liters, and that sends a redstone signal underneath these roof tiles through this cable into this extreme heat exchanger. So this extreme heat exchanger will only be on when there's more than 2,000 liters of distilled water in this buffer tank. That way we're minimizing the chance of an explosion. I don't think it should even be possible for this setup to explode because the dango makes, I think, 26,000 liters per second, which is more than the maximum this can even take in. But alright, so this makes superheated steam that comes out of this output hatch. I need to make this bigger with the 4K fluid cell because it's quite small by itself. And in the back here, this is where the cold solar salt comes out of this output hatch, goes into this interface and is stored in my network. However, the only place it's allowed to be stored is the input of the solar tower. So that completes the solar salt loop. And as for the superheated steam, that is stored in the super tanks connected to the extra large steam turbines, high pressure steam turbines. These need ZPM fluid regulators for the ideal transfer rate. And that rate is 76,800 liters per tick. Very fast, very, very fast. Of course, with 3 solar towers, I am going to make, I think, 120,000 steam per tick. So one of these is going to run at maximum efficiency and the other is not. With just 1 solar tower, I'm going to be making 40,000 per tick. So really, one of these is going to run at like half efficiency and the other is going to be off. Anyway, this superheated steam is processed into regular steam, comes out of this output hatch, stored in the system. And of course, the only place it's allowed to be stored is the input for the regular extra large steam turbine. Same thing again, I have it filtered. It can only go in the super tank. And it's the same export rate that's needed here, so 76,800 per tick. And this will make water that goes into this output hatch, and it's just going to get voided because I have it set to void overflow fluids. So this is temporarily set up, and I'm going to have to supplement this with our main power. But now we can put together the Waterline. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. HamCorp would like to apologize for the poor planning with regards to supercritical steam, and the head of R&D has been executed, has agreed to step down. In the next episode, we will set up the Waterline proper, and hopefully we can make ZPM energy hatches soon so we can upgrade from superheated steam to supercritical steam. See you next time.